Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the Underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The Underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the Underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
Well, hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Underworld podcast, your weekly source for all the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. And this week, we will be breaking down the brand new trailer for Andor Season 2. It's finally here. The trailer, that is. The season is still just under 2 months away, but there is lots to talk about in that trailer. We'll also be celebrating the return of Revenge of the Sith to cinemas. That's right. Episode 3 is coming back to movie theaters this year to celebrate its 20th anniversary, if you can believe it. Plus, we'll dig deep into the rumors and reports that Kathleen Kennedy might be retiring from Lucasfilm. We'll separate fact from fiction as best we can and try to understand this evolving story. All that and so much more. We might even get to a couple of questions, although I'll be honest, I don't think we're going to. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, we spent an entire show answering 2 questions, and now we're going to take questions and talk about Andor, Revenge of the Sith, and Kathleen Kennedy.
We'll have a great track record with this.
Yeah. I mean, fire away. If you've got questions, fire away. Put them in the chat. We will respond to them as we go, especially if you throw in a super chat. We'll get to them. We will do our best. But for those of you that submitted your questions in the Discord, tune in next week. We'll answer some of them then, maybe. And of course, by then, 7 other things might have happened that will upend any plans that we make now. But yeah, of course, welcome to the show. We're going to have a great time breaking down everything. Introductions are in order in case you're new to the show or you've forgotten who we are. That can happen. My name is Dominic Jones, and with me, as always, it's the founder of the Star Wars Underworld, Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
Why, hello there, ladies and gentlemen. It's good to be back. It's good not to struggle to find something to talk about on a show. It's really nice, especially after the last 2 weeks of being like, oh, what's going on? Not very much. And then this week, the floodgates opened in ways that I could not have imagined. Obviously, we started the week with the Andor trailer. That was great. And then some other stuff happened, and it's been very, very exciting and also a little bit confusing with that last bit of news that's most recently. And we've had updates as of an hour ago. We had an update about that story, so it's going to be interesting to get into that.
Yeah, I was just reading the update just before we went live. I didn't see it until I was doing the little bit of prep before the show, and I opened up the show notes and I see this new link. I'm like, oh, what's this? And I start reading it. I'm like, maybe there's more to it, or maybe. Here's my teaser for later in the show. There actually isn't. I think we're going to do some reading between the lines as we get to the interview that Kathleen Kennedy gave with Deadline just a couple hours ago. We'll get to that in a little bit. But first, we want to remind you of a couple of things. Should mention, of course, our usual co-hosts, Hannah and Chris, not with us yet. They may pop in, or they may not. I've given up guessing on if people are going to show up to the show or not. If people aren't there for the beginning, and this includes myself, if I'm not there for the beginning, I'm making no guarantees of an appearance later on in the show, and I think we should feel the same about.
Look, if you guys in the audience are confused sometimes by the lineup of hosts on this show, and you're wondering who's going to show up from week to week, guess what? So are we. We are as clueless as you are. There's some weeks where I started the show last week, and I was like, I'm the only one here. I don't know who else is going to show up, and then other people show up, and I'm okay, good. This is what the show's going to be. So you never know week to week. And then people say, hey, I'm going to show up halfway through the show. And they just don't, because, I mean,
life,
full disclosure, they have life outside of this podcast. You can't really blame them.
Yeah, it feels like a perfect time to mention I won't be here next week, so good luck, Ben. Of course, though, you should tune in next week. And every week, and the best way to make sure you never miss a show is to punch the subscribe button, Chewy. Subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. If you want to support us financially, you can do so by super chatting during the show. It's a way to guarantee your questions are included in this week's Ask the SWU segment. You can also become a channel member, and I don't think you really get anything with being a channel member with us. I think you get like a fun little like emoji thing.
Yeah.
But we haven't figured out how to do or what to do for any sort of perks. So it's more like a tip jar. If you're liking what you're hearing,
I mean, we've already established that we're lucky to even do one show per week, much less anything bonus for you guys that you're supporting us. So yeah, that's kind of how that goes right now. We'll figure out something maybe in the future.
There you go. You can also make sure you join our Discord. This is the place to keep the conversation going between shows. All sorts of fun stuff going on there. Also a great place to submit questions for Ask the SWU. Link to the Discord is in the description of the video or podcast that you're listening to. And follow us on social media at the SWU. Pretty much everywhere. I believe the focus is on Blue Sky these days. So the SWU.bski.social. I don't know, whatever it is. Follow us over there.
Just open up your phone, go to the App Store, download Blue Sky. When you get Blue Sky open, just type in the Star Wars Underworld and you will find it. I promise. It's not that hard.
You will. And of course, check out the other programs on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including the Raeside, Ion Cannon, which I guest hosted this week with Joel. We had a terrific conversation. No real topic, just a free-ranging Star Wars chat between the two of us. It was a lot of fun. Check that out, as well as Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, the Tractor Beam, and more. Actually, that's pretty much it. That's kind of it. The more is this show.
Yeah, that more is doing a lot of heavy lifting in the sense that it's kind of deceiving if we're being honest.
Yeah, it's like more theoretically, potentially. All right, let's dive into things. I think despite everything, the top story is still the premiere of the first trailer for Andor Season 2 that dropped on the official Star Wars social media accounts, along with a poster, which you can see on screen if you're watching live on YouTube or after the fact on YouTube. And the news that the season would be released in 3-episode chunks. So we get 3 episodes one week, 3 episodes the next week, 3 episodes the week after that, and then for one last time, the 4th and final time, 3 episodes all at once. So it's gonna be quick. It's 12 episodes, but it's gonna be quick. We'll talk about the release schedule in a moment. Well, let's start with the trailer. Ben, what stood out to you most in the trailer? What was your reaction to this first bit of proper promotion for Andor 2?
Yeah, it's weird that we're kind of like, we got a little bit of footage previously from that weird Disney Plus thing that they released a couple of months ago.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not the first Andor Season 2 footage we've gotten, but it's the most substantial and also gives us the vibe. And the vibe is the biggest takeaway that I have from this trailer, is that it was something that was unexpected. I think a lot from the chatter that I gathered online is a lot of people were kind of caught off guard by this, because this trailer presents a very upbeat vibe. Like, you have obviously the return of another pop song in a Star Wars trailer. Has anyone checked on Din? Is he okay?
So I can confirm our friend Din, who has, let's say, strong feelings about the use of Earth music in Star Wars. He texted me unprompted about the trailer, and he said, and I quote, if I could find the thing. Oh, there it is. I'll take Steve Earle's song in the trailer, thank you. Not in the show, LOL. So on board with the song in the trailer, as long as we don't start rocking out on Coruscant or Lothal or wherever to The Revolution Starts Now by Steve Earle.
Which I think that's where Din and I will find common ground. I think I would, if this showed up in the show, it would be really weird and it would be really off-putting. In the trailer, I think it works great. It does portray, like I said, a very upbeat, like exciting thing, which is what you want from a trailer. It's a great trailer. It's a great tune. But Andor, as we've seen from the first season, it's not an upbeat show. It's a thrilling show. It's an exciting show, but it's more exciting in a melancholy way. I mean, even in its most like broadest of like, fight the Empire, all this kind of stuff, it gets you really, pumped, but it's not in a yay Star Wars. It's more like yay Star Wars. Like it's a different tone. And that's what this trailer is like, having like it was basically just a rock song over this and talking about the revolution starts now. It's great, but it's also, I think it's, for the tone of Andor, it's very different than what we're used to. That said, like, a lot of great footage. They call it a trailer, but I think it's more of a teaser. It's more just like boom, boom, boom. A lot of things, a lot of quotes. They're very proud of this show. They're very proud of that critically acclaimed thing. Lucasfilm is all over that, and they have every right to be, in my opinion.
I saw where somebody said it's maybe not the best reflection of your franchise that your key marketing pitch for your next show is, this one's good. We swear this one is good. Which is, so is being glib and being funny. Not necessarily, that's not something I necessarily agree with. But yeah, I agree with you. This was an awesome trailer. It was, I said this on Monday. I said this on Ion Cannon because the trailer had like just dropped. It feels like Star Wars is actually confident and also willing to be a bit modern with this trailer. When I look back at other trailers, and I hate to spend all of my time comparing what we have to what we used to have, but I'll just quickly say this. When I compare this trailer to other Star Wars trailers, I feel so happy that for once it's not resting on the laurels of nostalgia in one way or another, because I feel like the vast majorities of Star Wars trailers trade in nostalgia, either nostalgia for Star Wars by having famous quotes from previous Star Wars movies, or having just the John Williams music. I mean, the Obi-Wan Kenobi trailer utilized Duel of the Fates perfectly, but it's trading off our nostalgia there. Or in the case of the Skeleton Crew trailers, it was just nostalgia for a different time, for the 80s when Star Wars was first coming out. And for as much as I thought some of the marketing for Skeleton Crew was really creative, it did feel like it wasn't really appealing to new audiences or to modern audiences. It was really playing off of the, hey, remember Goonies? Hey, remember the 80s? Hey, remember this? Down to the point where they were doing the like VHS looking footage with the old timey Lucasfilm logos and stuff that weren't actual old timey Lucasfilm logos. They were just made up to look old timey. It's fake nostalgia. And I remember looking at that going, if you're not already on board with Goonies or Stand By Me or something like that, you're not going to be interested in this. This isn't necessarily going to appeal to you. When I say this, I mean the marketing. The show itself might, because the show itself is very good, and those things that it's based on are very good. This trailer, you start watching that trailer, it doesn't feel like a Star Wars trailer.
No.
And so it catches your attention that way, because you're like, oh, what's this? What am I looking at? What's going on here? This just looks kind of cool. This looks kind of interesting. What are we watching? And then as it goes, you start to see stormtroopers, you start to see X-Wings, you start to see more of that classic Star Wars iconography. And there's almost a moment of realization of, oh, wow, this is Star Wars. But it's not just another, hey, remember the Death Star. Hey, remember the Millennium Falcon. Hey, remember Han Solo, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Luke Skywalker, all of that stuff. Even though the Death Star's friggin' in there. Like, it's there, it's definitely Star Wars, but it's Star Wars going, we are not defined by our past. We're bursting out of that, and we're going to do something cool and new and interesting. And so I really love the trailer for that. I love that we're getting away from, hey, remember Star Wars? Remember how great Star Wars is, or Star Wars was? Instead going, look at how friggin' awesome Star Wars is right now. That's what this trailer says to me. That's what Andor said with its first season, and I think that's what it's going to do again with its second season.
Yeah, I think we've talked about it before. I've mentioned like Lucasfilm and their like confidence problem with certain things in regards to the sequel trilogy or whatever else. And I think this is Lucasfilm. They're like cocky. They're like full confidence. And you know, let's face it. Like you can criticize the Star Wars brand underneath Disney for the past 13 years, and say, oh, you know, critics things, but like critics and Star Wars have not really ever agreed on much over the almost 50-year history. Like, you know, the first Star Wars, yeah, everyone loved it. Got down to Empire Strikes Back, started to get muddy the waters, and then it just went downhill from there. Like, you know, and to have something that like seems deemed unanimously, I know there are plenty of people that don't like Andor, and that's fine, but like the critics in unanimous cheering for the show, and then have at least most of the fans seemingly like that. I think they're like, okay, we're on top of the world, we're gonna milk this for all things. And having that confidence, I think if this was a different trailer for a different show, I think you would have had that, like you're saying, that Death Star shot would have been the end shot. It would have been that slow down, the music stops, then you hear Karanik laughing, and then it builds into that. But they just throw it in there in the middle of the trailer like it's nothing.
Yeah, it's just part of it. It's part of the fabric. But what they're selling you is the experience of Andor, the experience of this new thing that's exciting in and of itself, rather than something that is exciting because it reminds you of what you saw before. And I think, you know, when I think back, when I think about like the sequel trilogy and stuff, I love the sequels. I love both of them, 7 and 8. They're both great. The whole trilogy, both movies. But like, so there's the story, right, about George going to meet with Iger and Kennedy and JJ, and you know, he had sold them along with his company, you know, story treatments for episodes 7, 8, and 9. I think with the expectation that they would make those and that he would get to consult on them and he'd be involved. He'd read scripts and he'd give notes and all that stuff. And when they pitched him or they told him what they wanted to do, he was really upset because they were making what he would later describe as a movie for the fans. And George Lucas, you know, whatever you may think of some of the choices that he made, he was always thinking about doing something new, something interesting, something exciting. And for as much great stuff as, you know, the current Lucasfilm regime has made, there always feels like, or there often feels like, I won't say always, but there often feels like a feeling of, we just want to do what people already like, instead of showing them something new that they don't know that they want. And that was kind of the brilliance of Star Wars in the first place. Was, you know, I think if you ask audiences, you know, in January 1977, hey, are you excited for a new sci-fi space opera movie? Most people are probably saying no. And then Star Wars becomes the biggest thing in the world because it gave people something they didn't know they wanted. And, you know, you can never be that again, but you can give people smaller versions of that. And I think the most successful Star Wars projects, and the ones that have the longest legs, the ones that last the longest and remain in people's minds the longest, are the ones that do that. The ones that give you that sweet, sweet hit of nostalgia, that's the one that you're forgetting about in a couple years, right? You're moving on from it, not really worrying about it. But the ones that try something different, that do something different, try to meet the audience at a different place than what they're used to, they may not be as beloved in the moment, but they're the ones that last. There's a reason why Revenge of the Sith will be back in theaters this year. There's a reason why The Phantom Menace made $15+ million in a weekend, or something like that last year when it was back in theaters. It's because those movies lasted. They resonated with people, and the people that watched those movies for the first time grew up and now want to support them and want to see those movies and are nostalgic for those movies. And I don't want to make it sound like I don't think that will happen with the sequel trilogy, because there will be people for whom those were their first Star Wars movies, and they probably see them in a way that I just can't, because I see them, trying to pull at the nostalgia strings. And other people are going to look at those movies and go, no, there's the new stuff in here. Again, especially 7 and 8. I don't know what you find in 9. I'm sorry. But there's going to be folks that find that. And so when we do the 20th anniversary of The Force Awakens in 10 years, because this year is also the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens, everybody just sit there and ponder the passage of time for a minute. I think people will, those movies will have a similar sort of renaissance like we're seeing with the prequels. But anyways, and I think Andor will be one of those things too, because, and I think it will be even more so than the sequels, because it showed us just a different way of doing Star Wars. Nothing had ever done Star Wars the way Andor did Star Wars. It was like, here is the familiar story, the familiar history, familiar iconography. We're going to tell you a completely different kind of story. A lot of the stuff that's hinted at and alluded to in those movies will be explored in a way you don't expect in Andor season 1 and Andor season 2. And I think season 2 just promises more of that. And even a movie like Rogue One, which takes itself away from sort of, it doesn't lean quite as hard on the nostalgia button. It does in places, but not quite as hard. You see it in the way it's resonated, and that's why Andor is sort of a continuation of it. That's why director Krennic is coming back. It's because people that movie resonates with people, and now we get to see more from those characters in new and different and interesting ways.
Yeah, and like you saying all that got me thinking, just in general of like people's relationship just with Hollywood in general, with media in general. How many times have you been in a conversation with somebody and they said, oh God, Hollywood, there's no original ideas, they just the sequels and prequels and they don't have anything. But then when you pay attention and you kind of look at all this stuff and you look at all of the original stuff that comes out that gets almost nothing, no attention at all. Every original movie that bombs the box office, you're like, where was everybody? And then on the flip side of that, people have negative reactions to new things. I think Star Wars, in a variety of ways, in the Disney era, has taken massive swings. I think Last Jedi, for warts and all, is a movie that takes massive swings, and I think it got unfairly criticized for that. And there's other examples of that too. And then you have the whole, like, they come out with something. Who asked for this? Who asked for this thing? What did we hear going into Andor season 1? Who asked for this? Why are they making this? Nobody asked for a show about that dude that dies in Rogue One. Like, why do we want this? Why does anybody want this? And now here we are, possibly one of the most anticipated series of the year. And it lived up to it lived up to the hype that wasn't there, essentially. All of us knew what Andor was going to be, but a lot of people didn't. So yeah, it's very funny and interesting. But I think Andor is a show that's shaping everything, and it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with Andor, because it is just a 2-season show. This is it. This is all we're getting, and they're wrapping up remarkably quick, which kind of makes me angry. We'll get into that later. But what does come next, and how does Andor? What's the lasting effect of Andor on the thing. And these are big questions to be asking. Well, we have a trailer to talk about, and there's so much good stuff, but I have all these questions that I'm pondering, and I'm just spitballing here.
Yeah, it'll be fascinating to see. We'll see. I wouldn't have thought we'd still be doing the show at the 10th anniversary of The Force Awakens, and yet here we are. So we may well be doing this in the 10th anniversary of Andor, and at that point we'll have a better sense of what the legacy of the show is. Let's actually talk a little bit about the trailer itself instead of just Andor and what it means. Let's talk about some of the returning characters. You mentioned him already, Ben, kind of the big one. Director Krennic back from Rogue One. What do you think of him returning? I know we kind of knew this already. It was teased, I think, at D23, and it had been out there in the rumor mill for quite some time. But Director Krennic back. What do you expect to see from the not so good director, and what do you hope to see from this character's return?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think this trailer kind of confirms what I was suspecting, and what I was hoping for is that, especially the other trailers, which I want, the leaked trailers, the potato quality trailers that are out there that I have seen. I won't give away any spoilers for those things. There's a lot of other stuff in there that isn't in this trailer. But the whole idea of Andor season 1 kind of felt like it ultimately, outside of everything that was going on in each arc and all the ensemble cast of amazing characters, it still felt like it was still focused on Cassian and his story. And I don't think they're getting away from that, but season 2 feels like more of a, this is not just Cassian's story. This is a Rogue One prequel. This is a show that is leading up to Rogue One. And the closer we get to that movie, the more familiar things we see and the more familiar faces that we see. And, seeing that very stark shot of not just Krennic, but Krennic standing in front of the unfinished Death Star, that could be right out of Rogue One. And it might be right before Rogue One. Who knows? And there's another shot of good old Saw Gerrera, and he looks very Rogue One-esque. And, it kind of begs the question of how close are we getting? And Tony Gilroy has pretty much confirmed that it's ends 5 minutes before Rogue One. So that we're heading that direction. So I'm so glad that they, it would have been a great surprise, but I just like that we're getting the confirmation that Krennic is in this, and that he is going to hopefully play a pivotal role, because he's in several shots. He's interacting with several characters. There's one shot of him perhaps meeting Mon Mothma. Some people have speculated, so that's interesting. So
certainly that other Chandrillan dudes in the background, the one with the really fancy, he's
the shady banker dude. And then there's someone in the left-hand corner of the screen that kind of looks like it could be Genevieve O'Reilly. So take that as you will, but I think it's just interesting. I think adding more layers to, I think we're going to watch this show and be like, oh crap, all these Devil Scolded. Thank you, Skywalkers. And so I like that we'll never be able to watch Rogue One the same way again. Already Cassian's death hits so much harder, and every scene he's in and everything he says in Rogue One hits way harder now, thanks to Andor season 1. I think it's going to be the same way for all the characters going forward.
Yeah. Din and I rewatched Rogue One a couple months ago. And we were sort of talking about how it plays differently with the series now. Our sense of who Cassian is, and I think really it just sort of enhances a lot of what's already there. There's a few things that don't quite line up. I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old is a bit of a stretch. It's not quite true.
Yeah,
he's kind of embellishing the truth to make a point to Jyn in that scene, I think is how we have to read it now. But by and large, it holds up very nicely. Yeah, I'm curious to see. The Death Star is factoring into this story, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. I think when all is said and done, we'll look at Andor season 1, Andor season 2, and Rogue One as sort of a Cassian Andor trilogy. And so it just sort of makes sense that you would foreshadow his demise through the prequels to that story. And they did it in such a beautifully subtle way in season 1, right? With the Narkina 5 arc, and not knowing what they were building until the very, very end of the season. So I think that worked really, really well. And so to get a more overt look at the Death Star and what's going on there. Again, it's just sort of, if you don't know where Cassian's story is going, his future is kind of looming over it, even if it isn't. Even if I don't know what I was going to say there. It's looming over him. That's the point.
Yeah.
Should just stopped with the
Makes
words.
sense.
So I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see if Cassian will meet Krennic. I suspect you're right that he'll be more involved in the Mon Mothma storyline, probably with Deidre Miro, probably with Serial Boy Cyril Karn, both of whom just get like quick moments in the trailer, kind of flashes.
I was literally just thinking like, Cassian and Krennic, they can't meet because of Rogue One. And then I'm like, why can't they meet? Literally, their only interaction as Rogue One is when Cassian shoots him. So like,
well, actually, it's when Krennic shoots Cassian and then Cassian shoots him back. They just kind of like,
okay, you're right. They're shooting each other in the vault thing.
Yeah,
but like, I don't know. At that point, the jig is up. Like, I mean, if he's like, oh, there's this guy breaking in. Oh, I've seen you before. Like, they're not gonna have a conversation about that. Like, so
yeah,
I could see Tony Gilroy kind of playing with that maybe.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Another character who makes his return in this trailer, K2SO. Yeah. Now, Ben, I don't know about you, but I remember being at Star Wars Celebration Chicago in 2019, and in the morning before the episode 9 panel, a story went up on StarWars.com about how Alan Tudyk was going to be back as K2SO for the untitled Cassian Andor prequel series. And thinking, why aren't they making that announcement here? Alan is here. He's here in Chicago at the McCormick Center. He's here now. Just do it here. Anyway, they announced it, but he did a panel later where I think Warwick Davis interviewed him. And he trolled the ever-living you-know-what out of the audience, including, I don't think anybody fell for it harder than you did, Ben, when Warwick and Alan said, guess what, guys? They said, guess what, guys? We've got a special preview from the untitled Cassian Andor prequel series of what K2SO's role is going to be. I remember the crowd went wild. Everybody's going nuts. I'm sitting there like a curmudgeon, and one time right to be the curmudgeon going, they haven't started shooting yet. There's no way they have anything right now. I know Alan's sense of humor, and I know Warwick's sense of humor. They're about to pull the rug out from under everybody, and it's going to be hilarious. And I remember sitting next to me, a young Benjamin Hart, jumping up and down, like, oh my God. And then I don't remember it
like that.
On the screen, what did they show? A cheap animation of K2SO reenacting the scene from Firefly with Wash with his dinosaurs, using the audio from Firefly. It was very funny. Right. It was a very, very funny bit.
Oh, it was great. It was great.
I applaud Alan and Warwick for that moment.
Look, but for one, I look, I deny all of that. I don't remember any of that. Secondly, look, you do not understand the energy when you're in a panel, when you're things, you don't have the internet or anything. You're completely cut off from the world. You're just sitting in front and somebody's telling you, hey, I have this thing. And you're like, the logic gears in your brain don't catch up with you. You're just like, oh my God, Anderson, and you just go with it. And I don't know, maybe I did, but a lot of people that really did too. And it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, you were far from the only one to fall for it. I think most of the people in the theater fell for it. I know Kieran fell for it. I know Chris fell for it. I know several other people who were with us fell for it. I think, see, this is the thing, Ben, you're talking about the energy. I think this is why I didn't fall for it. Because that was the day that I was very sick and should not have gone to the convention.
Yeah.
And so and this is where, I've thrown you under the bus. I will now throw myself under the bus to join you. Had a small snooze during that panel. So I was maybe not the most energetic person in the auditorium.
The lineup that day was the Clone Wars Season 7, Alan Tudyk, and The Mandalorian, the first ever panel for The Mandalorian. So I think if you're going to snooze through any of that, I think even Alan Tudyk would agree that was a good idea.
Yeah. So my energy levels may not have been matching everybody else in the auditorium that day. And so I was probably able to sense that something was a little bit off about the fact that this thing that had not started shooting, they were going to show us something from it.
And ironically, they announced it. They officially, I forgot about that. They announced that he's going to be in the show, and then he doesn't show up throughout the entirety of season 1. We're left wondering.
Well, and I remember to be fair, they did tell us, because Andor went through a couple of evolutions during its production, in part because of COVID and just in part because of, the natural evolutions that a show goes through. And when they switched showrunners from Stephen Schiff to Tony Gilroy, I think a lot changed in the show, and that's when they cut K2 from season 1. And to be fair, they were upfront about it. They sent Alan out, and he did a bunch of interviews saying, "Yep, story changed, and so I'm not in it anymore, but I'm looking forward to being in it in the future, because we will definitely one day see Cassian and K2 together again." And now we will see that in this in this upcoming season. Do we expect to see the first meeting between Cassian and K2, or is the format of this season where after every 3 episodes we jump forward in time a year? Does that allow for us to just go from one arc where Cassian doesn't have K2 to another arc where they're besties?
I say I will be disappointed if Tony Gilroy doesn't completely disregard Star Wars canon and just show us them meeting. That's my official opinion. And I know I'm a hypocrite. I've complained about other times when they've broken canon, but I don't care. I think it's important. And I think comic from some other year that I don't even remember the name, be damned, give us the K2 and Cassian meeting first.
Yeah, because there was a Rogue One comic book tie-in. It was a one-shot issue that showed how they met. And I think part of the plan of season 1 originally was to show that meeting. And I think Gilroy's been on record saying that he feels that he owes it to the fans to show that meeting. And again, if we look, I recognize and acknowledge the importance of the Star Wars paper canon in storytelling. And I love it when they can include elements, be it characters or extensions of certain storylines. But if you're telling the definitive story of Cassian Andor across 2 seasons of Andor and then Rogue One, meeting K2SO is too important an event to be relegated to a comic book. And I feel like you got to show that story. And I feel like there's just way too much potential there for great fun to be had with those characters meeting each other, getting to know each other, going through the reprogramming and figuring out how to work together. I think there's way too much fun to be had there. So I don't expect Alan back as K2 in the first arc, but I suspect he will make an appearance fairly early in the season. So I mean, within the first, maybe arc 2. I think we get a couple of arcs of Cassian and K2 action.
Yeah. I'd be happy with that. If he gets introduced in the last episode, I'll be angry. But if they give us 3 to 6 episodes of K2, that's fine.
Yeah. We see a lot of return. Excuse me. We see a lot of returning characters from season 1 of Andor back in this. Bix is all over this trailer.
Yeah.
You see Mon Mothma, of course. Luthen is in there. Deidre Miro, Cyril Karn, Mon Mothma, obviously, and
Edie Karn.
Edie Karn is back, the mother character, and oh my God, he's in Rogue One. What's his name?
You're talking about Melshi.
Yeah, he's back in here. And Cassian's BFF from Ferrix. What's his name? Brasso. Yeah, he's in there as well. So
we
lots
can
of,
Star Wars.
Yeah. And of course, Saw Gerrera as well back in there. So lots of returning characters. Looking forward to seeing more from them. Very curious about the scenes of Mon Mothma dancing. That looks really interesting. I'm excited to see where that goes.
I can't take credit for this. I saw people talking about it, and it made sense to me. People are suggesting that is on Chandrila, and it could be Lita's wedding.
Oh,
so maybe we'll see. Maybe this is like a Chandrilan wedding custom. I'm just like, hey, we're dancing, we're doing all this kind of stuff, but like you see that one shot, like she's like really having a bad time. But then like I think it's gonna be a classic like Mon Mothma having to like deal with something on the side and then put on a face and go out and dance while she's very sad about something.
Or
it's
another Chandrilan tradition of a divorce party. because
Chandrilans would have a party.
Yeah, because Mon
divorce.
Finally leaves Perrin in season 2.
Because he's not in the trailer. It'll be a classic version of Perrin died on the way back to his home planet. And he was never heard from again.
He'll get Gina Carano'd. The other thing kind of interesting that's stood out to me, and I noticed this on first viewing, and I was glad to see other people noticed it. Did we see the Resistance base from The Force Awakens?
I'm glad you brought this up because I really I have a lot of thoughts on this because there's a couple different ways this could go.
All right.
For those who are not aware, it's the shot where there's a doorway and there's a person that's either very injured or dead. It looks like maybe a rebel fighter. And then there's 2 partisan X-Wings, black and white, decked out X-Wings, Saw Gerrera's X-Wings. And there's also a Gazanti freighter. You may remember those from back in Clone Wars. Actually, I think they first appeared on the Zygerian homeworld back in the day. I think that's when they were first introduced, and then they've just repurposed that design for literally everything in animation and otherwise. I think this may be the first time we've seen it in live action, which is pretty cool. So they're taking off. You can kind of look at the mounds, and the dead giveaway here is like, this looks straight up like Greenham Commons. Like, I have no doubt that they shot this at Greenham Commons. First of all, because Andor is shot in England, and it's like right there. It's in near London. Like it's in. And for those who don't know, Greenham Commons is this old Royal Air Force base where they shot the scenes for the Resistance base in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. And so, and the giveaway here is in the background. There is these mountains, and they straight up match the mountains that are kind of CGI'd in. Because there's not mountains like that.
Yeah.
No, there's no mountains like that in the UK. I'm sorry. At least not in that part. So that seems to be very much matching that. So I think this is, obviously the kind of the crux of the sequel trilogy seemed to be that the Resistance was utilizing old rebel bases. Yeah. Perhaps this is I don't know, is this a rebel base? Is this a Saw Gerrera partisan base? There's people dead and there's partisans fleeing the scene, so maybe Saw did something sketchy and to the rebels, and this is kind of their parting ways, as we know that the partisans do. I don't know, it's very interesting. I'm hoping it's not just a classic, well, we filmed in the same location, but it's actually a different planet. It kind of looks the same, and it's a different planet. Don't do that to me again, Tony Gilroy, please, for the love of
it. It is.
I just let it be Dakar. That would be a cool cameo. It would be right up their alley to do that.
It is to Dakar what Jakku is to Tatooine. It's basically the same but different. It would be cool. I mean, that was one thing. One of those things about the sequel trilogy where you're like, does everywhere have to also have been a Rebel Alliance base? Can't we have some new original locations? But I'm glad to see, because they've included that in the lore, I'm glad to see it being incorporated into the story. And it just sort of makes sense. It
makes sense. I think the lore being there, maybe it's not a rebel base. Maybe it's something else, and they're just there for some reason. And there's also speculation. There is a grass planet, like a farming planet, in some of these shots. There's specifically the shot where Cassian is piloting the TIE Avenger, and he's maneuvering and blasting that convoy or whatever else. Some people are saying it looks a lot like Dantooine. And obviously Dantooine has not been depicted in canon yet, but it's been depicted like that in Legends, and we know from A New Hope that was a rebel base at some point, maybe in this era. So who knows? There's another opportunity for a planet cameo.
Planet cameo. My favorite kind of cameo. Who needs a person cameo when you can have a planet cameo? Speaking of...
So we can all do that Leonardo DiCaprio thing. We can point at the screen. I know that plays instead of I know that person or guy or dude or girl. Yay.
Speaking of cameos.
Oh.
Making your way onto the show. We've got Hannah Raeside.
Why have I frozen? Am I frozen? Oh, I'm back.
No, you're back now.
I'm good. All right. Hey, happy days. I was
A+
hoping...
entrance. A+ entrance. Yeah.
Top tier. I was hoping you were going to segue me in with that cameo mention. Hello. Yeah. I'm so sorry for my lateness. Absolute drama. We might be getting a cat. Accepted. That's literally the reason. There's like a family member that needs to get rid of their cat. Essentially, they're moving to where they can't have a cat, and I might be getting a cat. That's literally the drama today.
Oh. Well, then we'll talk after the show. Have you ever had a cat before?
Never.
Okay, well, I'll give you some tips after the show.
Thank you. Okay, you're a cat guy. Okay, anyway, great to be here.
I got two at home.
That's right. Yeah, cats. What drama have we covered so far? What haven't we talked about? What have we talked about?
We were just about to start winding down on Andor, on the Andor chat, but real quick, give us your overall reaction to the trailer, being that you are the #1 biggest Andor fan on the show.
Yes, well, I am now because it's great. I rewatched it. I like season 1, and this trailer was all types of just exciting. The action, the tempo, the different locations. I think you guys were just mentioning so much opportunity, and Mon Mothma looks abso-freaking-lutely fantastic. So I'm excited for all parts of it. I'm very, very happy about it. I'm just so excited. Yeah, I'm really hyped. I'm really, really hyped.
All right. What's the #1 standout thing for you?
I think I'm really excited to see Mon Mothma and Krennic face off and their dynamic. They clearly have a lot to do with each other. I can see Krennic rolling up to one of, the Mothma's famous parties. So I think I'm just so excited for both those characters because they're kind of in similar positions on either side of their the Empire and Rebellion. So I think I'm just really excited to see those two show down. Yeah, I think that's my biggest point.
Yeah, to actually to see one of the Mothma's parties again and actually see the really shitty people that her husband invites, because that was one of the things in season 1 was they didn't tease it. They mentioned that Mas Amedda was going to come to...
It was a tease.
They mentioned that Mas Amedda was going to come to one of the parties, and we were so ready for Mas Amedda to show up the next week, and he didn't. He never did. Maybe in season 2. So we'll move off the trailer, but let's talk a little bit about this release schedule for the new season. Obviously, Andor is the show that likes to do 3-episode arcs. And season 2 will be no different. There'll be 4 3-episode arcs to make up the 12 episodes, and in between each 3-episode arc, a year will pass. So that's how they will go from from being 5 years out from Rogue One in season 1 to being right before Rogue One at the end of the season. We've discussed how we like Andor and we'd like more seasons, and so this is sad, but this is what they're doing. This is what we're getting, so let's enjoy it. But this way of releasing it they're releasing 3 episodes at once. So it'll be 3 episodes one week, 3 episodes the next week, 3 episodes the week after that, and then we'll close things out with the final 3 episodes, I believe on May 12th, I think is the day. Hannah, what do you think of this way of releasing the show?
I think this is single-handedly the most exciting facet of a Star Wars series for the past 5 years. This is such a good idea. and it is going to work unbelievably well. Like, not to get everyone's hopes up, but it will be fantastic. I think, especially for the depth and darkness this show, at least season 1 carried, and I'm assuming will carry into season 2. It's going to make so much sense. I think such a criticism, even with the shows I've utterly adored, has been like these short episodes. We have to wait a whole last week. It gets annoying. It got really irritating. But I think showing these kind of insular arcs, and especially with the whole setup of like there's a year in between each arc, will make so much sense. And like I've been kind of saying around, it's like we're going to get a mini Andor movie for 4 weeks in a row. I can kind of see the merit to people being like, oh, this means we have less time to appreciate Andor. But I think as the stories, it's like we just get to whoop and holler about a whole movie every week. I think it's going to be really, really good. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I am 100% with you. Like, it took me a second to get over being sad that it wasn't going to be drawn out for 12 weeks because, you know, it'd be fun to spend more time with the characters. But this is the way to show this show. This is how it should be. And honestly, I think it might be a little bit of a vision of what future Star Wars TV releases might look like. But we'll get to that in a second, because I know, I suspect the Star Wars guy might feel a little bit differently on this. Ben, what do you think of this release schedule?
Let's see. Where do I start? I hear what you're saying. I A+ on the positivity. But I despise this, and I think it's the worst thing. I was literally crushed when I heard this. Like, this is so dumb and so stupid in a variety of reasons.
Wow.
Like, you're taking, like, we were just talking about this the other day, like how, like, I love to process my Star Wars. I love to take things in like these episodes, and like I would love to have 2 or 3 weeks to go over one episode. I don't get that. I'm never going to get that. That's unrealistic expectations. But having just a week to really sit on an episode and really enjoy it and really pick it apart, I think is great. And, you know, you're taking what would have been at the very least like 10, 11 weeks of hype that would have drawn out, would have built up, would have, you know, kept the show going, kept it in the public eye, kept people talking about it for that long. You're paring that down to 4 weeks, and then it's just going to be forgotten. Like, it's just going to be like, boom, it's gone. Like 4 weeks, nothing. And it's so disappointing. It's so, I get it. I get the logic. I don't even think, like, I'm not cynical enough to think that, like, Disney forced this upon them, and maybe this was Tony Gilroy's idea. But I just think, like, it's such a quick, it feels like, oh, we're just going to get this out of the way. We're not going to, you know, we don't want to deal with this any longer. I think it's a mistake. I think it really is. I think you really have an opportunity to let this show build on each other. I get people are bored sometimes. I get some of the episodes are shorter and they're slower, but it's only a week, guys. Seriously, you can wait. You can just be patient. Not this instant gratification culture, not to sound like a boomer. But it is a problem. It is a problem. And y'all need to really work on yourself. I'm just saying.
I thought you were going to say y'all need Jesus for a second.
I mean, that too.
Okay, but Ben, let me ask you this. What is more impactful? 4 weeks of intense, sustained momentum and excitement, or 10 to 12 weeks of drawn out ebbs and flows, not seeing the full picture, highs and lows, ins and outs of the top 10, panic about this and that? What's more impactful? This wow factor all at once, or in a really sustained period, really shortened period of sustained excitement and excitement. Let's just go with excitement 3 times, or just sort of drawing it out and leisurely letting it come and go and this and that.
Okay.
It's an event. It is a month-long event. That's what we're getting.
Think of watching the Narkina 5 arc just in one hit for the first time you get that whole storyline experience in just one hit. How sick would that be?
Yeah.
That would
Or
have been just epic.
the Eye of Aldani, the Aldani arc. That's
Yeah.
the one to me that until you see the full picture, you can't fully appreciate it. Because like episode 2 ends with just him like being like, everybody be ready in the morning, throw away the drink for some reason. And that's just the end of the episode. There's no cliffhanger. There's no up, down. There's no rise and fall. But that whole arc, when you see it all at once, when you
I think,
end
honestly,
on the wow of the Eye and everything that goes down with everybody's deaths and who survives and everything, that's like that all at once is like the way that I think that story should be experienced.
But all at once also is just like this one and done thing. I think there is merit in sitting with an episode and not, and it makes it all the more impactful when you get to the Eye, when you get to know One Way Out, and you've been with these characters for 3 weeks. You've been watching this episode. You've been rewatching the episodes. You've been doing all this, and there's this anticipation. And when it comes up to pass, it is so gratifying. And instead of sitting down for an hour and just boom, watch the episode and going like, okay, whatever. I watched all 3. It's fine now. It's over.
Let me ask you this.
You're not going to convince me otherwise, Dom. It's not going to happen.
The end. I'm trying to pick what the best Star Wars movie to do this with is. Let's go Force Awakens. The moment when the lightsaber starts shaking in the snow and you think it's going to fly into Kylo's hand, and instead it flies past his face into Rey's hand and she ignites it with the big hit of the John Williams Force theme and everything. You're saying when you saw that on opening night in 2015, you're like, meh, I wish I'd seen this drawn out over 3 weeks instead of all at once. This sucks. I didn't get to live with these characters, live with this moment. I just got to see this all in one go. You're telling me that you would have rather we split The Force Awakens into 3 episodes that you had to wait a week in between that maybe just ended at random places instead of just getting the wow, here's the story all at once. Or A New Hope. Let's take yourself back to the first time you watched that. Luke blowing up the Death Star. You want to say you'd rather that doesn't work as well because you got it all at once in a 2-hour movie?
I don't know if you realize this. But Andor is a TV show. And The Force Awakens and A New Hope, they are feature films that are released in theaters. That they're meant to be watched all together, which also begs another question. If they're going to release all the episodes at once, all 3 episodes, why cut them up into episodes in the first place? Just make it 4 episodes and be done with it. If you're meant to watch them all together, just edit them all together. Why are they separate
That's
episodes?
actually a fair point.
I give you
Imagine
that one.
Imagine that was just
See, I'm not crazy.
Okay, Andor season 2 is 4 episodes, an hour and a half long each episode. That would actually be even cooler. I do give you that. That would be like, okay, respect.
Yeah, that's fine. But of all the shows, and we would say this, Ben, we would say this about the Clone Wars too back in the day. Those are 4 episode movies. Think about you, sir, started a petition to get the Siege of Mandalore shown in theaters because you wanted to see it as a cinematic experience, as a movie, because that was 4 episodes that you could cut together as a movie. The 3 episodes of The Eye of Aldani, or the 3 episodes of Narkina 5, or the 3 episodes that start the season, you take out the credits and you watch them back to back. Those are just movies. Movies.
And see, I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
Like obviously these things work. Like every episode of Andor deserves to be enjoyed on the big screen. Every episode of the Clone Wars, like all this. You're not making any bad points here, for the record. But my point is just like the communal first time experience of digesting something new is, I think, being, I think it's being something's being lost here in the shuffle of this. And I think I think, I don't know. Like I said, I understand the logic. I understand that a lot of other people then maybe they worry because, like, let's face it, Andor didn't do great in the ratings last time. Andor season 1 did not do phenomenally well. And, and there is these different types of binge models. And there is, like Netflix set the standard. They're like, we're going to release the whole season of Stranger Things at once because whatever. And they've continued to do that. But then they've mixed things up. They're like, oh, we're going to release half a season now and half a season later to build up tension and build up excitement and stuff like this. This is another way to do it. And I personally hate it.
Here's the thing, though, Ben. I think this is the future. I think this is the future of Star Wars streaming, of Star Wars TV shows. I
disagree with you.
We've talked before about, what does the future of Star Wars TV look like? What are we going to see from these shows now that they are shifting back to their focus being movies? Disney Plus doesn't seem to be wanting to have quite as much new content, or at least as expensive new content. But every now and again, they're going to want to make a show. And I think they're going to want to make the show into an event. And they want to have all eyes on that event, the same way they did for, let's say, like the premiere of Obi-Wan Kenobi. And they're going to want to build up the excitement. And they're going to want the excitement to be sustained. But the only way to sustain it is to keep it short. Because as soon as you start drawing out, then you have the ebbs and flows, the ups and downs of a regular TV season where people come in and out. But if you do it over 4 weeks, you get like a thrilling, exciting thing that builds up. The old BBC show Sherlock, old, 10 years old, 15 years old, not that old.
Love that show.
Yeah, so good. It used to do that to perfection because it would go away for years. And then it would come back and dominate for like 3 weeks with 3 90-minute episodes, not unlike 4 Andor arcs of 3 episodes that roughly equate out to 90 minutes in total. And I think going forward, if not with Ahsoka Season 2, then anything after Ahsoka Season 2, we'll start to see releases that look more like this, that are more like this sort of thing, rather than, Skeleton Crew or Acolyte or even Obi-Wan Kenobi or Mandalorian, where the season kind of draws out and it's a lot of, as Hannah was saying, short episodes that sometimes don't really seem all that impactful in the moment. You're going to get big wow factor episodes all together really quickly. Not in a binge model. There will still be the weeks in between to build the excitement and all that, but the seasons will be quicker, the episodes will be longer, and they'll be more impactful. Each one will be more impactful, much in the same way that seeing 3 episodes of Andor in a row will be impactful and exciting. So I think this isn't just Tony Gilroy saying, hey, this is how I want the show to be released. I don't even think this is Disney saying, hey, we're kind of quiet canceling the show by truncating its release schedule for the final season. I think this is actually a little bit of a test to see how audiences react to Star Wars in a Star Wars series in a real contained release window. Obviously it shouldn't be the be all end all when it comes to those sorts of tests. As you mentioned, Andor wasn't the ratings sort of powerhouse that even that the Mandalorian or Obi-Wan Kenobi was. But it gives us a little bit of a sense of what it might be like. And the hype from season 1 of Andor has only built. More people have seen the show. More people have heard about the show. More people have gone back to the show and realized its greatness, Hannah. And now the excitement going into season 2 is much higher than it was going into season 1. And I think it's starting from a real strong place. Anyway.
Yep.
Yep.
This is the future, always in motion. All right, let's move off of Andor and move to the second huge Star Wars story that broke this week. Revenge of the Sith returns to theaters to celebrate its 20th anniversary this April 25th. So about a month actually early from its actual 20th anniversary, if I'm going to be just a little bit pedantic about this. But it's back on the big screen. We got a new poster. Same dude that did the posters for the Phantom Menace and Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back anniversary posters did it. He also did one for Rogue One when that got a re-release as well. It's back. We're going to see it again. How do we feel about the return of episode 3 to the theaters? Hannah, start us off.
Yeah, I'm really like this. This was a no-brainer. This was so just like they needed to do it, and I'm so glad they are actually doing it. I think it's going to be really exciting. I think one thing from what we learned last year, if you cast your mind back to Phantom Menace 25th anniversary, that came back into cinemas. And I was looking with this announcement, I was looking up that it made I think it was like 14.3 or 14.2 million globally. And that was only released for 2 days, Phantom Menace was. Where this, I believe, is going to be a week.
No, Phantom Menace was a week as well. They're all a week. Yeah. They've all been a week. Yeah.
Oh. See ya. See ya to my mic.
So shocked by that revelation.
Could not handle that. Yeah.
Down goes the microphone.
Mic drop. Okay, well, I digress. With Revenge of the Sith, I think is arguably the most anticipated. Can you hear that ringing? Oh no, who's
someone calling you?
Is that I'm really excited for seeing how this does, like, numbers wise. I know this is like a lame say because it's like this is incredible news. What else is there to say about it? But I'm like, I'm so excited for this to do like crazy numbers, and then just to prove that this is still such a reverent movie and really really wonderful piece of art that we still have, and people still adore this movie to this day. So I'm like making predictions now. It's going to make 50 mil in the box office. Making my prediction. So yeah, awesome news.
If it made $50 million in 1 week, I think they would cancel all other movies and just show this movie for eternity.
I'm telling you, it's gonna be insane. It's gonna be insane.
It is gonna be big. Ben, what do you think? How do you feel? How excited are you?
Oh, very excited, especially since this is literally a day before my birthday. And so I'm just like, yes, I know what I'm doing for my birthday. And yeah, it's great. I mean, this was, guess to be expected. Like everyone was just like, yeah, release it. And they did it for Phantom Menace. And it seemed natural to do this, but it's really good to get the confirmation. And yeah, I can't wait. I have not seen this in theaters since 2005. So it's going to be very, actually that's a lie. Technically it wasn't a theater. But we did see it in 3D at Celebration. So that was good. Good. What I haven't seen is like my parents have like said, "Oh, we're gonna tag along." They want to come with me to this because I've already said what I'm gonna do with my birthday weekend, and I'm like, wait, you got like I remember seeing this with you guys on opening weekend in 2005. I think that's the last time they have seen this movie. So I'm like, okay, we have to catch you up on this. You haven't seen the prequels in a while. You need some homework because going into this movie blind may be a bit much. Yeah.
Well, Ben, also, we saw it 10 years ago at Celebration. So we see this movie theatrically once a decade. We see it its first release, Celebration 2015, and now this in theaters. The other exciting part of this is this is from StarWars.com. Screenings will be available in several formats, including for the first time 4DX. From the exhilarating battles over the planet Coruscant to the fiery volcanic high grounds of Mustafar, relive this pivotal chapter of the Skywalker saga. The 4DX experience features high-tech motion chairs that sync with over 21 visual effects, all designed to complement the narrative of the film. Basically, you're going to get a 2-hour version of Star Tours, and I am so
what do they do? Just turn up the heater when you're on Mustafar? Like, is that what's happening?
Maybe.
Like, wow. Yeah.
Chairs are going to be shaking. I imagine the Order 66 sequence, you're going to feel like you're being shot in the back. All sorts of crazy stuff going down. We mentioned that we saw it in 3D at Celebration. I hope that 3D is part of this. I know folks have preconceived notions about what 3D is from, about 10, 15 years ago when every movie was being released in a crappy conversion. The 3D conversion of Revenge of the Sith is excellent. And if you haven't seen a modern 3D laser IMAX projection, you are missing out. That is truly like one of the best ways to experience an action movie. So I very much hope that this is included with that. But even if it isn't, even if it's just the 2D regular old stuff, I'm so ready to see this movie again. With the chair shaking, whether it's 4DX or not. If it's 4DX, it'll be because there was like a motion thing. If it's regular old experience, it'll be shaking just because I'm so excited, and we'll be shaking throughout the movie. Yes, April 25th, the movie returns for a week to theaters. The poster is by Matt Ferguson. Do check it out. It is beautiful. Excellent. I've enjoyed all of his posters. I dare say this is his best work, only perhaps rivaled by his Return of the Jedi poster, which was also spectacular. All right, so there, we've covered a Star Wars trailer. We've covered a Star Wars movie being re-released in theaters. Surely that's it. That's all the news we could handle in a week. Nope. This week it was reported first by Puck News and then followed up on by Hollywood Reporter, Variety, all the various Hollywood trades, that Kathleen Kennedy is getting ready to retire from Lucasfilm, that she's expected to step down from her position as president of the company by 2025. This led to rampant speculation about who would be replacing her. Hollywood Reporter even had an article asking a bunch of insiders who they think should take it over, and there were a whole bunch of options, including Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, Kevin Feige. J.J. Abrams was on the list, which kind of surprised me, and then some producers that you probably haven't heard of, who are maybe more likely to actually take over the role than some of those other guys. But then literally about an hour before the show started, Deadline actually spoke to Kathy, and they asked her about these reports and if she is going to be retiring anytime soon. This is what Kathleen Kennedy said. This is her first answer in the interview with Deadline. The truth is, and I want to just say loud and clear, I am not retiring. I will never retire from movies. I will die making movies. That is the first thing I have to say. I am not retiring. What's happening at Lucasfilm is I have been talking for quite some time with both Bob and Alan about what an eventual succession plan might look like. We have an amazing bench of people here, and we have every intention of making an announcement months or a year down the road. We are in lockstep as to that's going to be, and I'm continuing. I'm producing the Mandalorian movie right now, and I'm also producing Sean Levy's movie, which is after that. So I'm continuing to stay at Lucasfilm and looking very thoughtfully with Bob and Alan as to who's stepping in. So that is all underway. We have every right, and we have every right to make that announcement when we want to make it. So interesting is what she says, interesting in what she doesn't say. She says she's not retiring from making movies. She doesn't say she's not retiring from making Star Wars movies. She says she's still producing Star Wars movies. But she also says that she's talking about who might take over from her as president of Lucasfilm. So my interpretation of this is that the report itself, the initial report that she is getting ready to retire from Lucasfilm or move on from being president of Lucasfilm, is true. The sensationalist nonsense that followed it, that she was being forced out or was being fired, that is obviously not true. Clearly she's going to stick around, and it sounds like she'll probably stick around and help with the transition. So they'll name someone or someones as her replacement, and she'll still be there working with the people that she put in place so that those movies get made, those movies get finished, while the new leadership gets to start getting the ball rolling on other projects. That's my interpretation of it. But again, I'll throw this out to you, Ben. Why don't you go first on this? What do you think of this report, of what Kathleen Kennedy says, and potentially who might be in the running to take on this leadership position at Lucasfilm?
Yeah, I mean, like when that first Puck interview report, I should say, came out, like and it literally like dropped in the middle of the night. And we you know, the kind of that's when the chatter began, and like it didn't surprise me at all. Like I was kind of like, my first reaction was just like, okay, all right, this makes sense. You know, she's been there for 13 years now. I tend to believe where there's smoke, there's a fire. I think that kind of all this kind of confirms that. That's not to say that there wasn't some stuff said in the in between the lines and in the lines of like the first Puck report and a lot of the stuff, other things of just like some general like stuff that isn't true, and clearly people in bad faith arguing that maybe Kathleen Kennedy, not that she is leaving, but that she should leave, and those people can just go away. But ultimately, it does make sense that I think she might have an exit strategy at this point. It's fact. It's known that her contract has been renewed the past couple times, past couple years. It's things. And no, I'm not talking about all the freaking YouTube videos. Just in general, there's been a vibe, and there's been some reports from fairly reliable sources that maybe she is on her way out. So like that things, and to hear it straight from her, it's great. And I've really, since it literally came out, like you said, an hour before the show, I haven't got a chance to like only really skim through the interview, but it's a great interview. She's, you know, she's obviously doing the PR thing. She's doing the speaking in press release thing, but she's also saying a lot of stuff. She confirmed a lot of things. I think she talked about how Sean Levy's movie is the next movie after Mandalorian and Grogu. We did not know that until tonight. Like, that's news. So there's a lot of good stuff. I'm sure we'll talk more maybe next week about like what's going on there. But like, I think it's good that, and it kind of confirms what I thought, which is like if she retires from Lucasfilm, it's just gonna be I'm kind of leaving, but not really. I'm going to be around, and I'm going to be making movies. She might go back to the Kennedy Marshall Company. She might start her own company. Who knows? She's not going anywhere, and she's probably going to be involved with Lucasfilm after she leaves Lucasfilm, whenever that happens. And she said as much. So I think that's to be expected.
Yeah. Hannah, what do you think?
Yeah, the biggest thing out of this whole article that came out, because it was a doozy. There was so much in it. And I think it's hard to kind of pinpoint a lot of the things she makes remarks of. But I just in general, this is like a real first time we've seen, I say Star Wars, but really Kathleen, like, come out this strong. She is so certain in this interview, and like this is a direct response. Like,
yeah,
you know, rumor mill, PR, like everything going a wild. You know, Star Wars PR, Lucasfilm PR rang up Deadline. Hey, sit down with Kathy. We want to do an interview. Get this out there. Like, this is crazy, just confident and crazy certain. I think, you know, it's obviously up for debate for people of their own opinions, whether this is good, whether this is bad, you know, whatever they think of Kathleen, whatever they think of, like, you know, her being there. But I think that, yeah, the one big thing I want to highlight from this whole thing is just her confidence and certainty in doing this, and Lucasfilm deciding to do this, to come out and make a comment is crazy to me. I think it's just blown my mind that this is real.
Yeah. Well, she's retiring, so she's entering the don't give a fuck part of her career. So she can just kind of come out and say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what's really going on. Look, I brought this up a couple of weeks on the show that I thought we were probably nearing the end of Kathleen Kennedy's tenure at Lucasfilm, just from like reading the tea leaves and just looking at what was going on and what she was doing, that it seemed like she was getting ready to step away from Lucasfilm. And as she says, not necessarily to retire. She's going to keep making movies till she dies. She'll probably go back to the company that her and her husband founded. But she's also going to keep making Star Wars movies, which I think is a part of this that's sort of underappreciated. Because the concern that I had this week, as I was thinking about who might replace Kathleen Kennedy, is that we have just been through 6 years where it felt like every Star Wars project that was announced was canceled. And when you bring in a new leadership team at a company like Lucasfilm or at Disney or anything like that, They always, whoever that person is that's in charge, always wants to put their own stamp on things. And the way they do that is by getting a bunch of their own projects off the ground. And that would probably mean canceling a bunch of shit that the previous regime was working on. So that would have meant some of the stuff that we were excited about, some of the stuff we'd been hearing about, might have gone out the window. The fact that she's sticking around to help with the transition suggests that they're going to find someone to replace her that's already kind of on board with what's going on, is interested in what's going on, and she will help ensure that that part of her legacy gets off the ground. Someone else will complete that story, but she's going to make sure it at least gets started in the way that she wants it to. And we won't have to endure another round of, hey, guess what? The Mangold movie is canceled. Hey, guess what? The Ray movie is canceled. Hey, guess what? The Sean Levy movie is canceled. Hey, guess what? The Filoni movie is canceled. Although that one's probably pretty safe. Like we wouldn't have to deal with another round of that. So I do appreciate that. And yeah, look, she's been in the position for 13 years. That's a long time to have a job, to have the same job. And I think it's completely reasonable for her to want to, explore other options. And I think it's also reasonable for that Disney, for as much as they might have liked what she's doing, to also go, hey, maybe it's time for somebody new to take a stab at this. Or maybe, if not even maybe it's time, maybe it's just exciting that somebody new might take a stab at this. But I think they're going to find someone, or honestly someones, to take over this role that is interested in what she is leaving them behind. Because let's not forget, as we talked about earlier, George left a bunch of stuff behind, and Disney had no interest in doing a lot of what he had left behind. So I think I don't think Kathy wants that to happen to her, and so I expect her to, kind of shepherd the next era in as she shepherds herself out, which is.
Give me the holy trinity of John, Dave, and Carrie Beck as in charge of everything. Don't call it a president. Just call it the heads of Lucasfilm. Those are the three heads there.
The three-headed monster.
Yeah, the three-headed leads of Lucasfilm. Shit. Yeah.
Now here's the thing. Hollywood is very much a monkey see, monkey do business, and so I think a lot of studios are paying a lot of attention to what Warner Brothers and DC are doing right now, because they, for a lot of years, for a lot of times, everybody was looking for a Kevin Feige. They were looking for one guy to run things the way Marvel worked, and Warner went out of their way and said, no, actually, we're going to find two people to run it. We're going to get one person who's kind of a creative vision and one person who's kind of the business smarts. And so they've got James Gunn, who's a director, producer, writer, and they got Peter Safran, who's a producer. And so Gunn kind of serves as the showrunner. He's overseeing the creative stuff. He directs some movies, directs some TV shows, gets in there. And then you have Safran, who handles the licensing, dealing with the Warner Brothers board, hiring and hiring crews and finding locations. He does all of the work of the producer, a lot of the unsung work on these movies. And I think people are paying attention to how well that works, because if it works well, I think you'll start to see a lot of two-person teams. And honestly, I kind of expect whatever the announcement is, whoever takes over, for it to be Dave Filoni plus. Like it'll be Dave Filoni and Carrie Beck, or it'll be Dave Filoni and there are a couple other names in the Hollywood Reporter, like speculation insider article. Yeah, Emma Watts was one. Hannah Minghella is another one. Michelle Rejwan used to be there at Lucasfilm. Like, Filoni plus one of them kind of feels like the way they're gonna go. Kathleen Kennedy did get asked about Dave Filoni taking over. And if he was in the consideration, if he's being considered for, another sort of big role at Lucasfilm, moving from creative chief officer to somehow an even bigger role. She says, I can't say who it is because there's an internal process that goes on inside a large corporation and a publicly held company as to how we go about making deals, finalizing decisions, and making announcements. There's nothing unusual about that, and we're in the process. So she kind of dances around the question. She doesn't shut Dave out, but she doesn't say she's giving him the reins either. But yeah, that's what I think the future looks like for the top of Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ben. Go ahead. You got something else?
No, no,
to
no.
say.
I'm just kind of I think you kind of said it all. I think my view isn't like I don't think Filoni would want to take on the job unless he had some help. I think he's someone who has limited experience in like producing and stuff like that, and I think he still has a lot of aspirations for continuing to write and direct things. And I think you see what I think I see him in similar capacity to James Gunn. Got a lot of gas left in the tank. Like in Filoni's case, he's just getting started with like he's literally like he just directed his first like live action feature film, and it's in post production right now. Like Mandalorian, like he's actually
he
that's
didn't
Jon
direct.
Favreau.
I was gonna say Favreau directed. He hasn't directed his first.
I just realized I wrote like a 2,000 word piece, and I had that in my brain, and I have to go back and fix that. Oops.
No.
But he will be directing a movie, and I think he wants to do more. And like, I think you kind of tying his hands and being like, you have to run this company and you have to, you pay the taxes and do payroll for looks like, no. Okay. I don't think Dave Filoni really wants to do that. But, and like, I think maybe he's come more comfortable with his, his chief creative officer, I think is the official title. And he just recently got that. I think he got a lot of praise for that, and rightfully so. I don't know. Will he take it now? Will he kind of wait? Could he be president 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road? That's also a possibility. Who knows?
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see where things wind up. Let's look at this. Let's look a little bit deeper into this Kathleen Kennedy interview, because she does something that doesn't happen a lot because she doesn't give a lot of interviews. She acknowledged a lot of these projects that we know about that have been reported on, but have never been officially announced, that don't have articles on StarWars.com. This is the nice thing about having the boss go out there and actually give an interview. There's nobody that can tell her, no, don't talk about these things. I suppose Iger could, but I don't think he's that hands-on.
It's very George energy.
Yeah. So the Deadline writer says, I broke a piece last fall about Simon Kinberg making a deal to write and produce a Star Wars trilogy. How is that going? Kennedy says, we're absolutely rolling fast and furiously. That has gone exceptionally well, and he's literally going to script as we speak. We'll see something probably around June. Simon, if you remember, he did some work with us on the animated show, which was really wonderful, a really wonderful and collaborative experience. And then he got very, very busy with X-Men, and then recently became available again. And he segued into this space beautifully. We're really excited about where that's headed. So they're moving forward quickly with this. He's expected to turn in his first draft of presumably the first movie. I don't think he's expected to write the whole trilogy this quickly, but at least the first movie in 4 months. We are 4 months away from the script for Star Wars Episode 10 being turned in. I don't know if it's Episode 10,
wow.
But like it's coming quick. Also in this, Deadline asks about Sean Levy's movie. Here's what Kathleen Kennedy says about that. She says that's also in the future. It's all post the first 9. Sean is a standalone Star Wars story that'll take place post 9, maybe 5 or 6 years out. And then Mandalorian really stands on its own, because there we're dealing with a whole other era in the New Republic. We have other development going on in that space as well. So that's the space we're pretty focused on right now at the moment, because obviously with Mandalorian, we have a pretty good sense of where it's going. And with this, it's all pretty much new characters. We may bring in some of the characters back from the sequel saga, but pretty much new characters. So the focus is post Return of the Jedi right now with the Mandoverse, but it sounds like it's about to shift to post sequel trilogy, because she confirms that the Sean Levy movie is after Episode 9. Great, wonderful, excited about that. She also says it's all post the first 9, which suggests to me she's still talking a little bit about what Simon Kinberg is doing. So that kind of erases the idea that he might be doing some sort of old Republic thing. It sounds like it's again more and more sounding like it's going to be episodes 10, 11, 12.
Which lines up with those other reports saying that Rey was going to be involved in a lot of these movies.
Exactly. What else have we got here? Oh, James Mangold. James Mangold. Here's what she said
Oh.
about his movie.
Oh.
She says he's working on the script right now. Simon's working on scripts right now. Sean, we've been working with him already for about a year and a half. These guys are available now. Jim, he got delayed because of the Dylan movie and award season. You have to accommodate top talent to a certain extent, and quality is so important with what we are trying to do. I like to wait for people that I think are passionate and really good to step into Star Wars. Then she also mentions the Taika Waititi movie, which apparently is still happening.
This is like my biggest shock of this whole freaking article. Can I just say, this is like, I was like, sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, she says, I keep waiting for Taika. He's working with another writer now. He's so busy. I love him. I think if we ever get a script from Taika, it's going to be fantastic. I already saw a first act that I love, but tying him down, it's tricky. So,
wow.
4 just like huge, well, pretty big little tidbits of information from Kathleen Kennedy. 1, Simon Kinberg trilogy is happening. It's post episode 9. He's working on it now, expected to deliver his first script by June. 2, Sean Levy movie is happening. It is next. It's set 5 or 6 years after The Rise of Skywalker. 3, James Mangold's still working away on his movie. They're waiting for him, but it sounds like he's about ready to go on that as well. And Taika Waititi still apparently doing stuff. Got as far as writing the first act of the movie, has not written the other 2 yet, but we were waiting for him, but it's still happening. Whoever wants to take this, what do we think of these sort of free-flowing Star Wars updates from the woman in charge?
I think it can kind of confirms what we felt, or at least what I felt, in kind of hearing all the rumors and seeing all the reports, both officially and unofficially, is that they've just been working on stuff and they've just been talking to people and said, hey, so-and-so, write a Star Wars movie. And then maybe they go off and do it. And maybe some of them deliver, like Sean Levy. Maybe some of them don't deliver, like Taika Waititi. And this is just the creative process at work here. And it's nothing complicated. It's not dramatic. It's just like they're just throwing poodoo at a wall and trying to see what sticks and trying to see what things. And they had John Favreau was waiting in the wings. Like, it was easy to convert season 4 into a movie, so they did that. And then Sean Levy shows up, and he apparently, like, the busiest man in Hollywood, comes off with one of the biggest movies of the year last year, and he's somehow working on another Star Wars movie, and is going to make that happen very quickly. So, like, it is wild, but it ultimately makes sense, and it's nice to really think, like, I really wish Kathleen Kennedy would do this more often. Like, speaking of James Gunn, James Gunn has been so refreshing, like, online. I'm just being like, sometimes you'll just go on Threads and he's just quote tweeted something. He's like, no, that's not true. It's not happening. Batman's not blah, blah, blah. Like, he's just so good. And I wish Kathleen Kennedy had a Threads account, because that would be so good.
I gotta get her signed up with Threads. Never mind Blue Sky or the other thing. Get her on Threads. That's where we want her.
Yeah.
Hannah, what do you think?
I found her comments on the Taika stuff like so interesting. Like, that is so specific that she was just like, whenever he turns in a script. I just thought the tonality and just phrasing of that is so interesting. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of the pitch for Mangold's movie, so I'm kind of bummed that they're seemingly going ahead still. So I'm like, oh, bummer.
The only person on earth who's like, you know what? After having every Star Wars movie canceled, I'd like another one canceled, please.
Yes, I'm like, no, this one. You can do it. You can do it to that one.
Oh, people are excited about this. Cancel it.
Get rid of it.
And you know what? Make it the one who's directed. It's directed by the guy who might win Best Picture this year. Let's cancel that one. Next.
What did he make that he might win?
A Complete Unknown. The Bob Dylan biopic.
Yeah. Right.
Which is Star Warsy in a way.
Is it?
In a way. Not directly, obviously. Dylan doesn't have a lightsaber, but in spirit. I mean, a guitar,
Yeah, well, that'll do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm trying to think of what it's just so much content.
Too much.
Yes, it's too much. I'm like, I can't even remember anything.
Simon Kinberg, Sean Levy.
Simon Kinberg.
All of
it. Sean Levy, that's an interesting one. That's still like a real kind of circus act, in my opinion. I'm like, that doesn't fit or sit right with me. The Simon Kinberg stuff and his trilogy is the biggest thing that I'm like, I'm excited for that. I think he's a great creative. I like his work. I want to see his work in Star Wars. So, yeah, that one I think I'm most excited for in terms of just everything that's going on. But it's like, I hope they learn from this. I hope they learn that, like, Kathleen coming out and just being like, hey, this is what's going down. Is the way to go. Next time they're like, oh, this big rumor of someone's out. Ring up Deadline being like, hey, whip to something together. Kathleen's going to talk about it. Like, just do this with every big thing that's talked about. Like, oh, it's so easy.
It is.
And it basically happens anyways, because you'll get all these reports from Deadline and Hollywood Reporter and all this stuff based on anonymous sources. You can bet those anonymous sources are pretty highly placed, and they're people, giving talking points that they just don't want to come officially out of a mouthpiece for the company. But just have someone like Kathleen come out and address it when it happens, rather than hiding behind anonymous reports. I completely agree. But yeah, the sense I get from this interview is that they are, like, much in the same way that, like, Kathleen Kennedy sort of winding down her time at Lucasfilm, they're sort of winding down the, like, Mando New Republic era. Like, it's not over yet. There's still more things to do there. But at the same time that they're winding it down, they're also winding up, like, the next era. And there will be some, like, overlap to it. So we'll get the Mando Grogu movie, we'll get Ahsoka season 2, and we'll get the Dave Filoni movie. And sometime in between those three projects, you'll see the Sean Levy movie, probably see the Rey movie. And those are, like, post-sequel trilogy movies that will start to get things into place, get the momentum going for when the Kinberg trilogy is ready to go. And then that will be kind of the driving force, pun intended, of all things Star Wars going forward, with occasional, sojourns off to other eras for, tales here and there to kind of, take advantage of the fact that Star Wars is a whole universe with a whole history that you can play around in. But that's what it sort of sounds like. It sounds like, and winding down is probably makes it sound like it's, like, sort of ending quietly. It's going to go out with a bang. You're going to have Mando Grogu movie is going to be awesome. Ahsoka 2 is going to be awesome. And then the Filoni movie is going to just take everything that we've loved from the last 10 years and, like, put it all into one incredible, amazing thing that, puts a nice bow on it all. So
I agree. Totally agree.
Exciting things. Exciting times are ahead. Lots that we will have to think about and discuss for many, many weeks and months and years to come. Probably we'll learn a little bit more about this in less than 2 months' time at Star Wars Celebration Japan. I think some of the things that she's so willing to talk about in this interview might finally get a proper showcase in front of an audience made up of Star Wars fans. But I think with that, we will begin to wrap things up for this week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Star Wars Underworld podcast will be back next Thursday for more exciting discussion. Who knows what the hell will happen in the next 7 days? The last 7 days were busy enough. Probably the answer is nothing. And we'll just do questions again.
Maybe. Hopefully. We can catch up on those questions.
That kind of seems like where we're leading things. But lots to look forward to in the not too distant future. Hannah, thank you as always for being on, for making it to the end of the show.
Oh boy,
escaping your cat adoption discussion.
It's a lot more dramatic than it sounds. I know that's like a really, like, my dog ate my homework reason, but I promise it's
the cat
very stressful. The cat ate my homework. Maybe. I don't know.
Next time you can't be on the show, you'll be like, the cat ate my aux cord or something. You know?
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. Aux cord. What are we in 2008? Jeez.
Yeah, I'm like, I am looking at all of the technology in front of me. I'm like, my brain has gone empty as to what any of you things are called. XLR cable, USB-C,
aux cord. Ports, yeah, that's so good.
All of that stuff, and I'm like, you know what, aux cord. That's all I can think of.
I love it. Another good week. Yeah, here for the drama. So much happening. Thank you, God, for Kathy coming out, finally saying something to us. Very geared now for Celebration. That's going to be a wild, wild time. I think we're going to get a lot of stuff happening then. But until next time, good times.
Everybody make sure you're following at the Raeside, Raeside, on all social medias, including YouTube, where Hannah is constantly posting new content and live streams. Lots and lots of good Star Wars entertainment over there. Ben, thank you for being on. Is there an IPC or something you want to promote?
Actually, no. Haven't done anything lately. I will promote.
You just said you wrote something that's 2,000 words long, was also factually inaccurate. Do you want to promote that?
You can. I just realized you can't. Just like the old site, you can't edit Blue Sky posts. So it's there. it's got a hell of a lot. Nobody pointed that out to me. Okay, y'all all liked it. You all reposted it. You didn't tell me a part of it was wrong. So yeah, go follow me at Ben Hart with no E on Blue Sky, where I won't tweet anything for like a month, and then one night I'll post like 2,000 word thread for something that I'm really passionate about, aka not wanting Dave Filoni to be president of Lucasfilm. Yes, I said it. And also, you know what? I do have something to promote. I will promote, since Joel might kill me if I don't mention this. Movie night tomorrow night on the Discord. We will be watching, I believe, Batman: The Mask of the Phantasm. And I have not seen this movie, so it's gonna be interesting.
All right, check it out. Join the Star Wars Underworld Discord. Matthew in the chat getting pedantic saying you can't tweet anything on Blue Sky, Ben.
No, I'm bringing it back. You can't tweet on X either, okay?
What do you do?
So, whatever.
I fly on Blue Sky or something?
You fly.
What are you supposed to call it, Matt? What are you supposed to call it?
I love it.
I got a bunch of things to promote. I was on Ion Cannon this week. Go listen to that. It was great fun. Me and Joel had a terrific, wide-ranging, free-flowing discussion. Go check that out over on this same YouTube channel. Check that out. Ion Cannon, great episode. Also, if you want to talk some hockey, tune into Game Over Toronto. We're back now that the Four Nations tournament is over and Canada reigns supreme over the ice hockey world once again. We're back to talking about Toronto Maple Leafs games. So do tune into those. Search for Game Over Toronto on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. And of course, if you want to read about Star Wars in addition to just listening or watching people talk about it, you can follow my Substack. It's called Hoth Off the Press. DominicGJones.substack.com is where you find it. Again, Dominic G, like Greedo, Jones.com or .substack.com. Phooey. I almost got it right. Check it out. 2 posts a week, lots and lots, arguably too much Star Wars content going up over there. So DominicGJones.substack.com. There, I nailed it. All right, let's get through the rest of the plugs and get out of here. Again, subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your shows. That way you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed what you just heard and want to support the show financially, you can become a channel member. Think of it like a tip jar. You don't really get anything, but we appreciate it nonetheless. If you're listening on a platform that allows you to leave a review, we greatly appreciate that. Join the Discord. Watch Batman: Mask of the Phantasm with Ben and Joel and everybody else over there. You'll have a grand old time. And follow at the SWU on social media for all of Ben's tweets on Blue Sky. And of course, check out...
And Joel's, for the record, like half of that is Joel's making. He deserves all the credit for those.
There you go. And of course, make sure you check out the other shows on the Star Wars Underworld Network, including the Raeside, Ion Cannon, Tales from Beyond the Galaxy, and the Tractor Beam. That is it. We are out of here. We will see everybody again in 7 days' time. So for Ben, for Hannah, for Chris, who's not here, my name is Dominic, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.